Hello, welcome to Indie Tutorials. My name is Guillermo and I would like to thank the patrons supporting this channel. Hello everyone, let's continue by setting up the improved dodge ability and state. So if we recall, we had here in the states, we have the back step and the roll step, so state. So we are going to merge those and create a brand new dodge state, so we can have this dodge state trigger or work with both back step and roll step. And later on, when we added the dash ability, so when the player locks onto an enemy, we are going to use a dash type of animation, so that can be handled also with this new dodge state. And if we also recall, if we go to the player itself and go to the player movement component, character movement component, and open up the script, we added this dodge flag. And before we were handling the can roll and can back step change of these flags in this on roll or back step function. So we are going to get rid of this logic as well and deal with that with ORK object variables, so that can be handled and directed by the abilities itself. Okay, so let's start also by I showed you last time this way to get the input asset for the horizontal move. So remember that now in ORK Framework 3, those input or these assets are stored here in this dash data folder. And if we scroll down, we have the input keys or input key, and these are our asset. So another alternative to do the same thing, instead of typing a hard-coded ID or index like we did here, and to not use the ORK constant script that we were using, for example, in linear returns series, is to add here in the script itself a reference to this asset. And something like let's create a serialized field. Sorry, not a serialized field, because this is not a serializable class. But what we can do is to actually, yes, my bad. So serialized field. So private if I can type. And I will add the whole namespace, so it helped me also remember. Makinom input asset key, there we go. And let's call this one horizontal move key, and let's copy this block and add the same for the vertical. Vertical move key. So after doing that, we should have variables in the inspector or slots to add these assets. But since we are already here in the script, let's just replace what we wrote here. So get axis is going to ask us for the key input key asset, so let's just replace this one with the horizontal move key. And for the vertical move key, let's add it here. Okay, save the script. Let's go back into Unity, let it compile, let's open up the prefab, and we should see now here in the character movement these two slots. So we can just click on the asset browser and select the horizontal move asset, input key asset, and the vertical move key asset. Save the prefab, and if we were to test it out, it should work. So we can still move in the vertical axis and the horizontal. Okay. But anyways, let's move on and start by going into the states folder, and here we're going to create our new brand Dodge state. So let's click on script and let's add the Dodge state. Okay, so now we can double click on it and open it in Visual Studio. Okay, so what we want here is to, in the first place, add the namespace for Animonster, and we want to inherit from the character state. Okay. After that, we can add a couple of clips transition like before. So let's add a serialize field, clip transition, and this is going to be our back step. We can add a public property in case we need to query this clip. Back step, and add a second one for the roll animation. Clip transition, roll, and add a public property. After that, we can override the can enter state. So let's add override can enter state, and the condition will be that the dodge flag is set to true, right? So let's query our character, the character movement, and from here we should have our dodge. Okay. So if the dodge is true, we can enter this state. Of course, this will be a state that has two animations. So what we need to do that should return either backstep or roll. And the condition for the roll is that we are moving, right? So what we can do here is check in our character movement. Oh, sorry, we have in the character movement direction is not equals to vector to 0, or we can use the default. And if that's true, then we return the roll state. Otherwise, else we return the back step. Right? So after that, we can then override the on enter state. We leave the base call, and then we can call our character again, the Animonster component, character animancer component and click on play, and we pass the current animation. And in the awake we are going to handle registering to the end of any of these clips to set this dodge flag back to false. I will explain the reason in a little bit. So let's do here in the on awake. Let's type backstep events on end, and we need to add another function on animation ended. Let's copy this line and do the same for roll state. When it ended, it will trigger this to call this function. So let's create this function. On animation ended, and we are going to deal here with the flag. Okay, not yet, but lastly we need to call the update method, and of course character animancer component, and also let's do the play current animation. Okay, so let's deal with this flag switch. Let's go back to Unity, let it compile. Before anything else, let's open up the prefab. Under the states game object, we have this multi-state. We see that we are already using states, roll state and back state, so we need to replace those. Let's drag the dodge state, and we need now to assign the animation clips and the character. So let's select the game object in the root to add the character, and for the backstep clip we can select or click here in the animation from the backstep state. So we can now drag this animation here, and the roll animation as well, or animation clip. We modified in the past when those ended, or when the animation should end. So let's make copy of it, and we set for the back step should end at frame 56. So let's do the same here. So frame 56, enter to accept, and for the roll it was 66, frame 66. Okay, so let's add 66, enter. This is when the animation clips should end. And now that we have our dodge state, we can add a new slot here and drag the dodge state, but remember to drag it on top. And now we can safely remove the roll state and the back step. Okay, so we are left now in the multi-state with the dodge state and the locomotion state. This is how we should be. It is safe for you to remove these game objects if you want, so let's do that. Remove component and remove the roll state component to keep things clean and tidy. So let's save the prefab, and now that we are still here, let's click on the root of the prefab. Let's go into the window Game is Love Makinom Scene Wizard, and from here we want to add a component, and let's start typing variable, and let's add an object variable component to our prefab. So if we scroll down, let's close the wizard, we have this object ID. I will call this ID as player, and then I will add a new variable. I will call this variable dodge in uppercase, like so. You can use any naming convention you wanted. The type of this variable is going to be type of bool, and by default is set to false. Okay, so again, let's save the prefab. And now that we have these object variables in place, we can come here and go back to our character movement component script. Where is it? Here. Double click on it to open up in Visual Studio once again, and let's add the logic for this flag. Okay, so to access the change in this object variable, we are going to get use of the variable handler from Makinom. The variable handle is just to give us access to global variables or to object variable like we have now. So the first thing I want to do is to create a reference to it here. So let's add a so let's call private gaming is love Makinom variable handler, not framework, Makinom variable handler, and let's call this variable handler, and let's add a public property because we need to access this variable handler from our states. So gaming is love Makinom variable handler and variable handler, and let's return the private property. In the awake we want to instantiate or to fetch an instance of this variable handler. So let's do gaming is love Makinom. In this case we are using Maki namespace. Then we call the game, the actual game is running, and then there is the get object variables. So here we need to pass the ID that we gave, in our case is player. Okay, and to avoid having magic strings, what I like to do is to create a constants class for our to store this all these magic strings. Alright, so before going further, let's go to Unity, let it compile, and inside our script folder we have this core folder. So let's create here a new script, and let's call this one something like game constants, and open up the script in Visual Studio once it compiles. And the only thing we need to here is to change the style to static. We need to remove the mono behavior descendant, and let's add public const string, and let's call this one player object variable ID. We'll have the ID of player. Since we are here, we can add the const string dodge object variable key, and remember that we type dodge uppercase, and let's leave it like so. So public static string game constant, and we have these two, so we can save the script, come back to our character movement script, and now instead of using this magic string we can just type game constant player object variable ID. Nice. Alrighty, so since we already have our variable handle reference, we can scroll down, and in our handle movement script, so let me just put this in one line since it was shortened. and from here we can do a dodge. Our dodge flag is going to be equals to variable handle, not the property but the variable, get bool, and we need to pass the key that we set. Remember, it's dodge, and we have our constants now. Dodge variable key. So this will let us read from the object variables, and we'll set the flag accordingly. But now we need to find a way to set this to true, right? Or set not this one, but the object variable that we have in the player to true when we action this dodge ability. For that, let it save. We need to open Makinom again, so Ctrl Alt M, and what we are going to do in the status, we have the abilities, backstep and roll ability. So normally each ability can execute in the battle animation and a schematic. So this is where we are going to set this flag. Alright, so in the first place, in the battle animation, let's uncheck use start animation and use end animation from the player itself. But then in the, let's click on add battle animation, and then we have this slot to create or add a schematic asset. So let's do that now. So let's jump into a schematic tab. Okay, it's asking us to save. Let's do that. Click on schematics, and from here we need to check the node as change variable. Let's link the nodes together, and in the change variable let's add a new variable. The change type is going to be, of course, the variable key again is dodge. The origin is not global, it's going to be object, and the object is the player, so it's going to search for the object variables in the player itself. This variable is type of boolean, and we want to check bool value. Now this is how we set it to true. Currently there is no easy way or way at all to know when the ability finished, or at least I don't know how to. So that's why we need to play with these flags variables. So okay, let's save the schematic, and let's select our folder, schematics, and let's add a nice name here like dodge ability schematic. Now the asset is saved, we can go back to the status abilities, and in the back ability we can assign our dodge ability schematic. We can leave block move AI, actually no, we want to use that in field and in battle systems. Can be used by anyone. Sorry about the phone. Let's go into the role ability, and in the battle animation let's do the same. Add battle animation, select our schematic, do not block move AI, and everything else should be as it is. Okay, so let's save both abilities. Alright, so when the ability is executed, it will set or will call this schematic. The schematic will set the flag to true, and because the flag is set to true, if we go back to our dodge state, it will read that this dodge is set to true, so it can enter. Whether the player is moving or not, it will play either the roll state or the back step state. So now we can, after the clip finished, or the animation finished, we can set the state or the flag back to false in this on animation ended. So here what we want to do is to call our character. This is the main hub of everything. Then call our character movement component. We have now this variable handler public property, and from here we can call the set. So we have both. We have two options, set and set without notify. I will choose the second one because I don't want to notify anyone else, and in this case is to notify the console, ORK console, or if you want to display a notification, but we don't care about that. So set without notify, and then it's asking us for the string of this, the key of this object variable. We have it in the game constants again. Dodge object variable key, and the value that we want to set this is to false. Simple as that. So let's go back to Unity and let it compile. So let's test it out. Control P to start play mode. I'm going to grab my gamepad. So we are still moving, and back step is working. So let me check in the game object itself. We can see here in the character movement we have the dodge flag, and you can see how it turns on and turns off. And if I start moving and pressing or tapping the B button, and it seems to be working, but there is a little bit of a little glitch that I saw. For example, if I tap while moving and stop moving, you can see that it plays the back step animation. Similarly, if I'm not moving and tap the B button and start moving, or click on the movement, it plays this glitchy animation. So that's something that we need to fix. Okay, so to fix this glitch in the backstep and roll animations, what we need to do is go back to the dodge state, and if we scroll down, we see that I added this update method. So for this type of animation that are let's say action based or one-time based animations, we don't need the update at all. So let's just remove this silly thing here and save the script. Let's go back to Unity, and if we hit play again to give another try, so I start jogging, I press B, I can roll, I stop movement, and the glitch is gone. I backstep and change direction or movement, and it will wait until the animation to finish. That's what we want, right? There we go. So right now, remember that we are using a tap like of ability activation. In case you wanted to not be so tight, you could go into the data folder. We have the game input map. So remember that we are using in the backstep this the dodge this tab, and it's taking the max tab duration from the input settings itself. It's 0.2 seconds to register a tab, so you could increase that either here by removing the override or in the input settings itself. It's up to you. Now that I am here, I think it's safe to just get rid of this backstep animation or action. So let's delete and save the asset. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the series, and thank you very much for supporting the channel. So now we have some errors here, of course, in our actions in the listener input component that we don't want to use anymore, so it is safe to delete this component. So let's go to scripts, input, where was it, behaviors, here. Yeah, we are not using this anymore, so we can remove it from the project itself. Okay guys, so next time we are going to start looking at the sprint animation and the sprint ability. So keep you tuning. Bye bye.